Welcome aboard, viewer extraordinaire. What city and country are lighting up your screen right now? Type it in the comments. Don't be shy. Let's see how far this video travels. And hey, spread the joy. Sharing is caring, and it helps my channel grow like a well-watered plant. The low hum of the Bentley's engine continued as Gareth Ellison approached to hook up the tow line. Vapors spiraled into the brisk February morning from under the hood, and the driver's side door hung open like something ripped loose. In his 8 years overseeing the underground garage beneath the Riverside County Courthouse, Gareth had never come across someone abandoning a luxury car worth over 6 figures right at the exit lane. "Sir," he called out, his voice echoing off the concrete supports, "you can't leave your vehicle there." No response. The car's hazard lights blinked stubbornly in time, with the dull fluorescent glow overhead, throwing shaky shadows across the greasy cement. He glanced at his watch. It was 7:42 a.m. Less than 20 minutes remained before the courthouse opened, and the Monday traffic was just about to pour in. Gareth circled the Bentley slowly. It bore temporary dealer tags. A leather briefcase was visible on the passenger side. Dangling from the rearview mirror was a parking pass with the name Colin Dupree. The name didn't ring any bells, but the vehicle's placement was blocking the sole ramp out of the garage. Behind it, a line of 23 cars waited, trapped. Gareth lifted his radio and pressed the button. "Ellison here, Riverside Courthouse Garage," he said steadily. "Got a Bentley abandoned at the lower exit. Need a tow truck." "Copy, Gareth." "Truck'll be there in 15, came the reply. By the time the tow truck pulled up, a cluster of irritated workers had gathered near the elevators, exchanging glances filled with annoyance. While the driver secured the car to the flatbed, Gareth kept the foot traffic moving and began filling out the tow documentation. That's when a sharply dressed man in a tailored suit came rushing out of the courthouse, urgency in every step. "Where's my car?" he barked, his voice lined with arrogance and expectation. He looked to be in his 30s, tall, confident, the kind of man used to getting his way with a single command. "You Colin Dupree?" Gareth asked without looking up. "Yeah, and you just towed my damn car. I want it back right now." "You left it where you weren't supposed to," Gareth replied in a flat, unbothered tone. "It was blocking the emergency route." He kept his tone even and unshaken. "Tow fees 200, plus storage." Colin stepped closer, the sharp scent of designer cologne wafting forward. "Listen, man, I'm not some random jerk skipping on parking tickets," he said. "I had a meeting that ran late. I'll pay whatever. Just give me back my car." "Policy says it's a 48-hour hold," Gareth said, handing over a card. "Daniel's towing Maple Street. That's where it is." Colin's face twisted, frustration creeping in. "This is ridiculous. Do you have any idea who I am?" He gave a derisive snort. "I develop commercial real estate. I make in a month what you probably don't see in a year." For the first time, Gareth gave him a proper look. There was something oddly familiar in the contours of his face. His cheekbones, the set of his jaw, those eyes. "Well, congrats," Gareth said dryly, face unreadable. Colin's volume rose. "You think this is some kind of joke? I could buy this whole garage. Hell, I could have your job tomorrow." "Maybe so," Gareth replied, already turning back toward the tow truck. "But that doesn't change the fact your car's gone." "Hold up!" Colin grabbed his arm. "Tell me your name." "Gareth Ellison." Colin's hand tightened briefly, then released. His expression shifted. Anger gone, something sharper taking its place. "Ellison," he said slowly. "Now that's interesting. I know who you are." Colin's lips curled into a knowing smirk, cool, calculating. "Yeah, I've heard of you." That evening, Gareth sat in his old Toyota Camry, parked just across the street from the home he'd inherited from his father. From the driver's seat, he watched as Colin Dupree strolled confidently up the walkway to the front porch of the duplex. It was a classic 1920s Craftsman, split into 2 separate residences. Gareth occupied the larger left-side unit. The smaller apartment on the right had been rented to a retired teacher, Mrs. Patterson, for the last 3 years. Colin pulled out a key. Before he could use it, the door swung open. Standing in the doorway was Gareth's wife, Lena, wearing the same red dress she had bought for their anniversary dinner a month earlier. the dress she'd never once worn for him. They embraced right there on the porch. And from where he sat in the car, Gareth felt something shift inside, a hollow, freezing sensation spreading quietly through his chest. His phone buzzed. Lena had sent him a text. "Working late, don't wait up." Gareth eased into the driveway and parked in his regular spot. The house stood quiet, its only illumination coming from the living room lamp programmed to switch on at dusk. He sat at the kitchen table, alone, nursing a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. His mind kept circling one name, Colin Dupree. That name had been echoing in his thoughts ever since the strange incident in the garage. Opening his laptop, he began combing through social media. On LinkedIn, he found a profile, Colin Dupree, employed by Meridian Development Group, a company that focused on repurposing residential properties. The profile photo appeared to be taken at a corporate retreat. Colin had his arm casually around a woman in a fitted cocktail dress. Gareth's breath caught. The woman was unmistakably Lena. He began scrolling through Colin's posts. Snapshots of business dinners, construction sites, charity galas. Lena appeared sporadically, usually in the background, rarely centered but always present. The photos went back months. At precisely 11:47 p.m., Gareth heard the click of the front door unlocking. Lena walked in and headed for the kitchen, removing her coat. "You're still up," she said, avoiding his gaze. "Couldn't sleep," he replied. "How was work?" She shrugged. "Same old stuff. Inventory issues, some corrections." Opening the fridge, she reached in and pulled out a bottle of wine. "Want a glass?" "I'll pass." "Hey, do you know a guy named Colin Dupree?" She froze, hand resting on the bottle's neck. "Who?" "Colin Dupree," he repeated casually. "Ran into him today. Said he thought he recognized me. I've never heard that name before." She poured the wine slowly, carefully, too carefully. "Why are you asking?" "He just looked familiar." She took a long sip, nearly finishing half the glass in one go. "I'm exhausted." Going to bed, once the bedroom door closed behind her, Gareth turned back to his laptop. This time he pulled up the county's real estate database and searched his home's address. The house had been in his family for over 40 years. His father had bought it in 1981, lived there until his death in 2019, and passed it on to Gareth in his will. Ownership records were clean, everything looked in order, until he noticed something troubling. A legal document had been filed 6 weeks earlier, a power of attorney granting Lena authority to act on Gareth's behalf in real estate dealings. The signature on it mimicked his, but he was certain he'd never signed such a thing. His hands shook as he dug deeper. There was a listing contract on file. The house was on the market. The broker? Someone affiliated with Meridian Development Group. Gareth printed the whole file. The following morning, he called in sick, his first time missing work in 2 years. He drove straight to the county recorder's office and requested every file tied to his address. A tired-looking clerk handed him a thick packet of documents. "Lot of activity on this one lately," she remarked. "Refinancing?" "Something like that," Gareth said. He sat in his car, flipping through the stack. The power of attorney had been notarized by a woman named Patricia Vance in Riverside. The listed business address traced back to a mailbox rental store. Gareth drove there and showed the notary stamp to the man behind the counter. "Patricia Vance?" "She hasn't worked here in 6 months," the clerk told him. "Moved to Arizona, I think." "But this document was signed just 6 weeks ago," Gareth said. The clerk leaned in, inspecting the stamp. "This is fake. You should take this to the authorities." "I plan to," Gareth replied. "Thanks." His next stop was across town, at a small used car lot owned by Darian Locke, an old friend from community college. They'd been roommates back in the day and stayed in touch. Darian, who'd grown up in the foster system, had a knack for navigating tricky systems, especially ones rigged against people like him. "You look rough," Darian said, stepping out of his office trailer. He was compact, broad-shouldered, with prematurely gray hair and an easy grin that concealed sharp instincts. "I've got a situation," Gareth said. "A legal one." Darian raised an eyebrow. "What kind of trouble are we talking about?" Gareth slid a stack of documents across the table. Darian skimmed through them, letting out a low whistle. This isn't the work of some rookie, he said under his breath. Whoever put this together knows real estate law inside and out. He passed the papers back with a slow shake of his head. You could go to the authorities, but proving forgery isn't a fast process. By the time they act, your property might already be gone. What would you recommend? Gareth asked. There's a lawyer, Sasha Vinter. She deals almost exclusively in fraud, used to prosecute for the DA's office before going private. He scribbled a number on a torn notepad and handed it to Gareth. Tell her Darian sent you. She owes me a favor. What kind of favor? Gareth asked, raising an eyebrow. The kind that's better left unexplained, Darian replied with a dry smirk. Sasha Vinter's firm operated out of a refurbished warehouse in the Arts District, wedged between a sleek gallery and a niche yoga studio. She was younger than Gareth had imagined, maybe in her early 40s, with sharply cut jet-black hair and an unflinching stare that hinted at years of dismantling high-stakes cons. Darian said you've got a real estate issue, she said, gesturing toward the chair opposite her desk. Once he sat down, Gareth carefully unpacked the entire situation. Sasha listened closely, her expression unreadable, jotting the occasional note on a pale yellow legal pad. How long have you and your wife been married? She asked when he finished. 4 years. Any kids? No. Prenuptial agreement? None. In that case, California's community property laws kick in, she said, but inheritance is typically excluded. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. That's what makes this so interesting. Legally, your wife has no claim to the house in the event of divorce. She can't sell what she doesn't own. What do we do now? Gareth asked. First step, file a notice of pending action with the county recorder. That'll freeze any potential sale from going through. Next, start documenting everything. Emails, texts, voicemails, paperwork, anything related to the property. And finally, she paused, a sly smile forming. Set the trap. He frowned slightly. Trap? The kind that nudges people into admitting crimes they thought they'd buried. The smile widened, sharp as a blade. My retainer's $5,000. Without hesitation, Gareth reached for his checkbook. That evening, he sat at the kitchen table as Lena came through the door. Her steps were tired, her shoulders low, but her face held something lighter, as if a weight had been partially lifted. How was your day? Gareth asked, fingers loosely interlaced on the table. Busy, she replied, uncorking a bottle of wine and filling her glass nearly to the brim. And yours, she added? He smiled gently. Surprisingly productive. He leaned forward slightly. I've been thinking about us. She stopped mid-motion, her wine glass hovering just below her lips. What do you mean? About where we're headed. I think it might help to talk to someone. A therapist. She set her glass down carefully, the stem making a soft clink on the tabletop. Why now? He traced a faint scratch on the wood grain with his thumb. It feels like we've been drifting. I want to try and fix things before we break. Lena stood and moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. I didn't know you were feeling like that. I care about you, he said softly. I want this to work. She gave him a gentle smile. I care about you too. I think therapy could help. That night, their time together felt heightened, every touch more deliberate, every kiss more intense, as though they both sensed the fragility beneath the surface. Later they lay together in the darkness, her body pressed against his, her breath warm and even on his chest. Gareth, she whispered. Yeah, he murmured, brushing her hair back from her face. If something happened to me, what would you do? He tensed slightly. What kind of something? If I died, or if we separated. What would happen to the house? He stayed silent, his hand drifting through her hair. I've honestly never thought about it. She began tracing slow, absent-minded circles on his chest with her fingertips. Sometimes I just wonder what the future holds. I suppose I'd stay here, he whispered. This house. It's the last piece of my father I still have, Gareth murmured, his voice low. Lena leaned into him, her body brushing his. But what if someone made a generous offer? She asked, almost hesitantly. Who exactly would that be? He asked, skeptical. I don't know. A property developer, maybe. Someone looking to demolish it and put up condos? Gareth's expression hardened. I'm not selling. It means too much. Her words came softer now, almost inaudible. But if we ever really needed the cash? He cupped her cheeks with both hands, eyes steady. Money's not what I'm missing. I need you. The next day, with the sound of running water from the shower in the background, Gareth walked to the nightstand where Lena's phone was plugged in. He knew her passcode. He unlocked it without hesitation. The text conversation was still open, plain, undeniable. Colin had messaged, meeting escrow today, targeting Friday to finalize. Lena had replied, what if he finds out? Colin's response, he won't. It'll be done before he catches on. Then Lena, I feel really guilty about this. Colin, you said he's holding you back. This is your shot at something real. And then her final text, I know. It's just, he's not a bad person, Colin. Colin didn't miss a beat. Bad guys build empires. Good guys manage parking lots. Gareth quietly captured screenshots of the entire exchange and forwarded them to his own phone. Then, carefully, he deleted the evidence from her device. When Lena stepped out of the shower, Gareth was lying in bed again, still and silent, feigning sleep. I've got a late night ahead, she said, buttoning her blouse. Team's pulling a strategy session. That's fine, Gareth replied, eyes still shut. I'll grab something for dinner. She leaned down, kissed his forehead. You're the sweetest. I'll make it up to you this weekend. Once the front door clicked shut behind her, Gareth picked up his phone and called Sasha. We need to accelerate everything, he said, urgency sharp in his voice. What's changed? They're trying to close before Friday. Understood, Sasha replied. Then we've got no time to waste. That afternoon, Gareth drove 2 hours east to Palm Desert to visit Dennis, his father-in-law. Dennis lived in a gated community, surrounded by manicured lawns and red-tiled roofs. His garage held a collection of barely used luxury gadgets. Dennis answered the door with the strained smile he'd worn ever since the wedding. Well, this is unexpected, he said. What brings you to my door? I need to talk about Lena, Gareth said evenly. Is there some kind of problem? That's what I'm hoping to understand. Can we talk inside? Dennis led him into the living room. The fireplace mantel was lined with neatly arranged photographs. Lena's graduation, their wedding day, festive dinners, birthdays. In several newer shots, Colin appeared, smiling, relaxed, part of the family. You know Colin Dupree, right? Gareth asked, scanning the frames. Sure, that's Lena's cousin, Dennis replied. Smart guy. Motivated, he added, his posture straightening. He's doing very well in real estate. Spends quite a bit of time here lately. That so? Gareth asked quietly. Dennis gave a slight shrug. He's family, after all. But then Dennis's expression turned more cautious. Where are you going with this, Gareth? Gareth met his gaze without blinking. I believe Lena's cheating on me. The words settled like a weight in the room. Dennis's face stiffened, a series of emotions passing through. Surprise, disbelief, then a flicker of anger. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any actual evidence? I do. I've seen the messages, the photos. Colin has access to our house. Dennis hesitated, brow furrowed. Maybe there's some other explanation. There is, Gareth said calmly. Just not one you're going to like. They're attempting to sell my home without my knowledge, Gareth said steadily. They forged my name on a power of attorney. Dennis rose sharply from his chair. I think it's time for you to leave. I came here hoping you'd speak with her first, before things get out of hand. Dennis's expression hardened. Are you threatening my daughter? Gareth remained seated, his voice level. No, I'm trying to spare her, and you, a very public fallout. He leaned forward slightly. Once this hits the legal system, it becomes a matter of public record. Reporters will catch wind of it. It'll be all over the news, social media, everywhere. Dennis studied him silently, tension tightening his jaw. What exactly are you asking me to do? Convince her to walk away from this. Stop it before it escalates. And if I don't? Gareth's voice turned colder. Then I'll act accordingly. That evening, Gareth drove through the dusty terrain, the mountains streaked with shadows from the sinking sun. Just as he pulled into his driveway, his phone rang. It was Sasha. "I found something." "Is it good or bad?" Gareth asked. "That depends on how you look at it," she replied. "I ran a background search on Colin Dupree." "And what did you find?" "This isn't his first time pulling something like this," she said. "There was a similar incident 3 years ago." Gareth sat up straighter. "What kind of incident?" "A woman in Rancho Mirage gave her nephew power of attorney. He sold her property to a development firm." "And Colin was involved?" "Not officially. The nephew was his roommate in college." "What happened to the woman?" "She passed away before charges were filed. Natural causes, but the timing raised red flags." "Was Colin ever indicted?" "No, but the investigators questioned him thoroughly. He managed to keep his hands clean." A cold knot settled in Gareth's chest. "So he's done this kind of thing before?" "I'm saying he knows how to navigate the edges without getting caught." "Well, I'm not some defenseless senior citizen." "Exactly," Sasha said. "You're alert, and that gives us an advantage." "What's the next move?" "We bait the trap," she said. "Tomorrow night I want you to confront Lena." "About what, specifically?" "Let her know you're aware of the forged power of attorney. But don't bring up Colin. Pretend you've only just come across the document itself." "What's the purpose of that?" "Fear makes people reckless. If she thinks the truth is starting to surface, she'll begin to panic. And that's when she'll make mistakes." The next evening, Gareth waited alone in the living room. All day he'd worked with a private surveillance firm Sasha recommended, placing discreet cameras throughout the home. At 7:30 p.m., Lena walked in, carrying 2 plastic bags from their regular Thai spot. She placed them on the table and opened a container of pad Thai. "I thought maybe we could eat together," she said lightly, settling on a stool. "You've been on edge lately." Gareth remained standing, voice firm and composed. "Yeah, it's been a stressful few days. We need to talk." She froze mid-motion, chopsticks hovering in the air. "Talk about what?" He crossed his arms. "The fake power of attorney." The blood drained from her face. The chopsticks slipped from her hand. She gripped the table for balance. I have no idea what you mean," she said, her voice unsteady. Gareth moved a step closer, speaking evenly but with emphasis. "I've reviewed the documents, Lena. I know you've been trying to sell the house." She lowered herself slowly onto the stool, her shoulders collapsing inward. "I was going to tell you," she murmured. "Then go ahead." "I'm listening," he said, one eyebrow arched. She inhaled shakily. "It was supposed to be a surprise." "A surprise?" he repeated. "What kind of surprise?" She dropped her gaze to the floor, unable to meet his eyes. "I've secured an offer, 2.1 million, significantly above market," Lena said in a subdued voice. "I thought we could use it to buy something contemporary. A place that belongs to us, not to your father's memory." Gareth's jaw stiffened, and his gaze grew colder. "You signed my name without consent," he said, his tone calm but edged with steel. Lena's eyes began to glisten. "I was going to tell you before the deal closed. I just wanted to get the process started." He slid a chair out and lowered himself into it across from her, speaking with restrained force. "Who's making the purchase?" "A real estate developer," she murmured. "Their plan is to tear down both buildings and replace them with condominiums." "And the firm's name?" he asked, unblinking. She dropped her head, tears tracing down her cheeks. I'm not sure. Everything's going through a third-party broker." Gareth stood, his movements slow and precise. His voice was glacial. "Call them tomorrow. Terminate the agreement." She trembled. "I can't." His voice rose slightly. "Why not?" She broke down completely, hiding her face in her palms. "Because I already spent the earnest deposit." He stared at her, disbelieving. "How much?" 50,000, she said, barely audible. "You took $50,000 from me," he said, the disbelief in his voice cutting like a blade. "It wasn't theft," she insisted, sobbing. "I meant to tell you." He got to his feet, his face devoid of emotion. "I want you out of this house." She stood as well, her voice cracking with desperation. "This is my home too." "It was mine," Gareth said coldly. "You just lived here." "That ends now." Her tears dried instantly, and she took a step back in shock. "You can't just throw me out." I'm your wife. He locked eyes with her, unrelenting. Then act like it. Cancel the sale, return the money, and never lie to me again. Her lips trembled. And if I don't? He paused, then replied with quiet menace. Then you'll learn what happens when you steal from someone who's already lost everything. That night she stayed in the guest room. Through the thin wall, Gareth could hear her voice, low, frantic, talking urgently into her phone, though he couldn't make out the words. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the betrayal pressing down on his chest like stone. At 3 a.m. his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., Riverside Park. Come alone. Gareth captured the screen and sent it to Sasha. She replied almost instantly, Don't go, this is getting dangerous. But Gareth was already up, getting dressed. Riverside Park was nearly deserted. Only a few figures, homeless men, slept curled up on benches, breathing slowly beneath worn blankets. He found a spot at a picnic table near the playground and waited, his eyes tracking every movement in the shifting shadows. At exactly 7 o'clock, someone stepped out from the dim area near the restroom building. Colin approached and took a seat across from him. You actually came, Colin said, settling onto the bench. You wanted a meeting, Gareth replied, checking the time. Under the flicker of a distant street lamp, Colin looked rougher than Gareth remembered, like life had aged him fast since that incident in the garage. He raked a hand through his hair and exhaled heavily. Lena's falling apart. She should be, Gareth said, folding his arms. She claims you threatened her, Colin said, leaning forward. I told her to return what she stole, Gareth said flatly. Colin gave a hollow laugh. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, Gareth answered. She cancels the sale, returns the 50 grand, and we move on. Colin's expression darkened as he shook his head. You still don't get it, do you? What is it exactly that I'm supposed to grasp here? Gareth asked, his voice tightening with restrained anger. Colin gave a casual shrug. She doesn't love you. Truth is, she never did. Gareth's expression went still, his jaw locking. She told you that herself? She told me a lot, Colin said, his voice low and measured. She said marrying you was about pity. That watching you care for your dying father moved her. It felt noble, so she went through with it. Gareth didn't blink, keeping his emotions behind a hardened stare. Colin continued. She said you had no drive, that you were content managing a parking lot instead of chasing anything bigger. She felt trapped, Gareth. And you showed up with a key to her cage, Gareth said coolly. I offered her a life that actually meant something, Colin snapped. We're closing on a house in Malibu. We're planning a wedding. We want kids. Using the money from the house she's trying to unload behind my back, Gareth replied, his voice like steel. That house was never really yours, Colin snapped. It was a gift. You didn't work for it. You inherited it. And you think that gives you some sort of claim? Gareth said under his breath. Colin stood suddenly, a shift in his tone. Here's what's going to happen. Lena closes the deal. You sign the paperwork. And then you disappear. Gareth's gaze didn't flinch. And if I refuse? Colin's mouth curled into a thin, dangerous smile. Then things get complicated. Accidents happen. People end up hurt. For the first time in days, a hint of a smile tugged at Gareth's lips. Is that your idea of a threat? I'm just telling you how the game is played, Colin said smoothly. You're not the only one involved. And some of these people don't appreciate being slowed down. Gareth's eyebrows rose slightly. You mean like that woman from Rancho Mirage? A flash of unease crossed Colin's features. You've been busy, Gareth said as he stood up. I know what kind of man you are. I know your track record, and I know you'll keep going unless someone stops you. Colin leaned closer, his voice daring. Then go ahead. Stop me. Gareth calmly reached into his jacket and pulled out a small voice recorder. Already done. Colin lunged toward him, but Gareth was ready. He sprang away from the bench and bolted down the gravel path, his boots pounding the earth as Colin's voice chased him. This isn't the end, Gareth. You hear me? It's not over. But Gareth didn't stop. He didn't turn around. He ran straight to his car, hands trembling as he started the engine and peeled away. By the time he reached his house, the place was dark. Lena's car wasn't outside. Inside, Gareth immediately dialed Sasha's number. "I got what we needed," he said, still breathless. "What did he say?" she asked, instantly alert. "He confessed," Gareth said, swallowing hard. "He threatened me. Talked about the scam. Even mentioned that woman from Rancho Mirage." "That's solid," Sasha said, though her voice carried concern. "But Gareth, this might be getting dangerous. Maybe you shouldn't stay there tonight." Leaning against the hallway wall, Gareth shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving. This is still my home." "Then at least alert the police," she insisted. "Not yet," he said quietly, voice taking on a steady resolve. "I need to finish this my way." That night, Gareth sat down in the den and began combing through footage from his hidden cameras. Between midnight and dawn, Lena had placed 17 separate calls. The audio had picked up most of them: voices, conversations, plans. Each clip peeled away another layer of the deception. What Gareth discovered was more disturbing than he'd anticipated. Colin wasn't working alone. He was embedded in a broader scheme, a predatory network targeting homeowners in distress. They hunted widowers, isolated seniors, and couples going through painful divorces. Gareth watched the footage in silence, his expression pale but resolute. Now he understood exactly what he was up against. The scheme was elaborate, constructed with fraudulent documents, bribed insiders, and front companies that looked entirely above board. Lena wasn't simply an uninformed bystander or someone caught by circumstance. She played a deliberate role, acting as a recruiter. Her job at the shipping firm gave her access to confidential personnel files, including sensitive details about employees' lives and families. For months, she'd been feeding Colin information, singling out individuals based on their vulnerabilities. Gareth? He was their ultimate target. The next day, Gareth made his way to the county courthouse, where he officially filed a report with the district attorney's office. Assigned to the case was Patricia Huang, a prosecutor with a reputation for handling intricate financial fraud. "There's a lot to go through here," she said, thumbing through the thick stack of documents Gareth had assembled. "How long have you been working on this?" Gareth leaned forward, fingers interlocked with focus. 3 days, he answered. Patricia blinked in surprise, her expression shifting. 3 days? This looks like the product of a months-long investigation. His gaze remained steady. "I've been highly motivated." She gave a slow nod, drumming her pen thoughtfully on the tabletop. "That much is obvious. But I need to be clear with you. Cases like this don't move quickly. We're looking at months, possibly longer, and recovering your losses isn't guaranteed." Gareth gave a faint shrug. "I'm not doing this for the money." Her pen paused in midair. "Then what is it you want?" He looked her straight in the eye. "Justice." Still in some quiet part of himself, Gareth already knew. Justice wouldn't be enough to satisfy what had been taken from him. That night, Gareth sat motionless in the unlit house, shadows stretching through every room. He glanced at his watch, 9:30 p.m. He heard faint steps echoing from the hallway. Then Lena's voice, low and unsure. "He's not here," she whispered. A deeper voice followed. "You're certain?" She exhaled. "His car's gone." "Perfect," Colin replied. "Let's wrap this up." Gareth stayed completely still, breath shallow, ears tuned to every movement. He heard them rustling through drawers, shifting items, opening boxes. There was the distinctive creak of his father's old watch case, then the soft clinking of his mother's jewelry. In the dining room, china rattled as it was carefully packed. Colin's voice echoed from the hallway. "What about the safe?" "In the closet, behind his suits," Lena responded. "Do you know the code?" She sounded tense, nearly whispering. "His dad's birthday. He uses it for everything." A small smirk tugged at Gareth's lips. He had changed the code 3 days earlier. For nearly an hour, they moved boxes to the car. Gareth counted 3 distinct trips, each set of footsteps fading, then returning. On the final trip, the steps came back slower, heavier. Lena spoke again, her voice trembling. "That's everything of value." Colin let out a pleased breath. "Good. Now we torch the place." Lena gasped. What? He answered without hesitation. Insurance job. Claim arson. We pocket the payout and the proceeds from the sale. She backed away. No, Colin. I'm not doing that. I can't. He stepped in, his tone ice cold. You don't get to back out. We're already too far in. I never agreed to that, she snapped. His voice dropped lower, more menacing. You agreed the moment you forged his signature. When you spent the advance. When you handed me the Kwiatkowski documents. A loud smack broke through the silence. Lena let out a startled cry. Don't touch me! Colin's tone hardened like steel. You're not backing out now. You and I, we split everything. Equal partners. I want no part of this anymore, she whispered. He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Too late to change your mind. Just then, Gareth rose to his feet and flipped on the living room light. Good evening, Lena, he said, stepping forward. Both of them spun around, stunned. Colin stood holding a red gas can in both hands. Lena clutched a small wooden box containing military decorations. Gareth? She breathed, startled. Her grip slipped, and the box fell, spilling the metals in a clattering stream across the floor. I can explain, she said hurriedly. Gareth's tone was composed, almost detached. I'm sure you can. That's always been one of your strengths. He turned to Colin, eyes narrowing. So this is the plan now? Burn the place down and cash in on the policy? Colin lowered the can carefully to the carpet. How long have you been standing there? He asked. Long enough, Gareth said, raising his phone. Smile for the camera. Lena blanched as the metallic gleam of the metals flashed in the phone's lens. Gareth, please, she started. He ignored her. This phone's been recording for over an hour. Everything's already saved to the cloud. Color rose in Colin's face. You sneaky piece of... Gareth stayed rooted, unshaken. Let's tally it up. Forced entry, theft, attempted insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit arson. What's that worth? 10, maybe 15 years? Colin's jaw tensed. You think you're smart? Gareth stepped toward him. No, just meticulous. I know all about Rancho Mirage, the offshore shells, and the other victims you bled dry. Suddenly, Colin reached into his jacket. He drew a revolver. Colin, don't! Lena screamed. Shut up! He barked, pointing the weapon at Gareth. Delete the video. Right now. Gareth didn't move. His voice stayed even. No. I will shoot you, Colin growled, his finger resting on the trigger. You might, Gareth said calmly, but the video's already backed up. Killing me won't change a thing. Colin's hand began trembling. You're lying. A small, cold smile touched Gareth's lips. Try me. He lifted the phone a bit higher. There's only one way to find out. The room held its breath. Then after a moment, Colin slowly lowered the gun. This isn't over, he hissed. Gareth let out a long breath. Yeah, it is. He pressed 3 numbers on his screen. Soon after, the red and blue flash of patrol lights lit up the room. Officers rushed in, detaining Colin and cuffing Lena. Firefighters waited nearby to inspect the scene, while paramedics checked Gareth for any signs of harm. As Colin was led past, Diana stepped into view from the hallway. She looked Gareth in the eye and gave a subtle nod. Justice, she said softly. Gareth returned a faint, weary smile. Justice. The next morning, Gareth sat at the kitchen table, a steaming mug of coffee in his hand, flipping through the morning newspaper. The front-page article detailed a major bust of a fraudulent property scheme. Though his name wasn't mentioned, the details left no question. His phone rang. It was Sasha. Nice work, she said. You pulled it off. We're not across the finish line yet, he answered. The DA feels confident, she told him. There's more than enough to put Colin away for good. And Lena? If she agrees to fully cooperate and testify, probation's likely, Sasha said. And the house? It's officially yours again. The sale was voided. As for the attempted arson, that's an insurance matter now. Should be simple enough. After ending the call, Gareth slowly wandered through the house, taking in the damage. The thieves had gotten away with his father's watches, his mother's treasured keepsakes, and a few other valuables. But the walls were still standing. He spent the day cleaning, restoring what he could, and placing memories back where they belonged. Each task felt like progress. That evening, He got in his car and headed back to the courthouse garage. His next shift wasn't scheduled until Monday, but he felt a need to return, to reconnect with the version of himself that existed before all this chaos. The garage was silent, lit by the same flickering fluorescence he remembered from nearly a decade ago. He made his way to the spot where Colin's Bentley had once blocked the gate. "Excuse me?" A woman's voice called out near the elevator, confident and professional. Gareth turned to see her standing there, well-dressed, a ring of keys dangling from her fingers. "Can I help you with something?" he asked, arms folded. She walked up with an air of composed confidence, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "Are you the supervisor here?" she asked. Gareth gave a small nod. "That's me." Her expression tightened slightly, signaling intent. "I need help with a delicate matter." Gareth tilted his chin, eyeing her curiously. "What kind of matter are we talking about?" She leaned in just enough that her voice barely carried. "The sort that demands complete discretion." He took a moment to study her. She looked to be in her mid-40s, perhaps a few years older than Lena, with the quiet poise of someone raised among privilege and control. Across the garage, a polished black Mercedes with temporary dealer tags sat neatly in a guest spot. "You might want to try someone else," he said, shaking his head. "I handle parking logistics, not personal entanglements." She didn't flinch. From the inner pocket of her tailored blazer, she drew a sleek business card and extended it toward him. "I was informed you're capable of more than what your title suggests." Gareth glanced down at the card but didn't take it. Instead, he tucked his hands into his pockets. "Then whoever told you that got it wrong." She nodded once, gracefully slipping the card back into her jacket. "If you ever reconsider, my door is open. I pay well for results." With that, she returned to her vehicle and drove off, her tires whispering softly over the smooth concrete. After she left, Gareth approached the trash bin and looked down at the business card she had tried to hand him. It was made from thick, high-end paper with silver-embossed lettering. "Victoria Ashford, Private Consulting." He tore the card cleanly in half and let the pieces flutter into the bin. Some propositions, he'd come to understand, were best left untouched. 2 months passed. Colin Dupree was handed a 12-year sentence in federal prison. Lena, having cooperated with prosecutors, received a 5-year probation term. The house was finally cleared. No more fraudulent liens, no more fabricated claims. Gareth returned to his job at the garage. There was comfort in its predictability, in the clear structure of daily tasks. He liked being the person people could count on to keep things orderly, to help them reach their destinations without fuss. The divorce was finalized one Tuesday in April. Lena didn't contest it. She had moved back in with her parents and was now answering phones at a call center, trying to piece together what was left of her life. He never saw her again. The house felt different now, quieter, but also unburdened. He'd installed new locks, upgraded the alarm system. Mrs. Patterson, his longtime tenant, had endured the entire ordeal with quiet dignity. When the final paperwork was signed, she appeared at his door holding a warm casserole. "You did what had to be done," she said with gentle conviction. "Some folks only learn through consequences." "I just wanted the house back," Gareth answered quietly. She gave a soft smile. "You didn't just get your house. You got your life back." That evening, Gareth sat out on the front porch as streaks of orange and rose painted the sky. The street was calm, the kind of peaceful only early evening could bring. Children rode their bicycles past in loose groups. A dog barked distantly down the block. His phone buzzed. A text from Darian. "My treat tonight. Drinks?" Gareth smiled, thumbs moving across the screen. "Sure, but I'm driving." Darian's reply came quickly. "Of course you are. You're the most careful guy I know." Gareth typed back, "I'm starting to learn." "Learn what?" Darian asked. "That being careful doesn't always mean being wise." Gareth stood, walked into the house, and gently pulled the door closed behind him. The soft snick of the deadbolt sliding home was, to him, the most satisfying sound he knew.